Hi church, I'm Michael. I'm going to be doing the Old Testament readings for us tonight. So we've got a few short passages from Proverbs, the first of which is Proverbs 18 verse 24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. The second is Proverbs 22 verse 24 to 25. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. And the third and final is Proverbs 27 verse 17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
Good evening, church, and welcome if you're new or visiting. My name is Hannah, and it's my privilege to do the second Bible reading. It comes from John 15 verses 9 to 17. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks, Hannah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ruth, and I'm the other youth and young adults minister with Pete here. And tonight is the last night of our series, What's God Got to Do With It? We've looked at a whole range of topics, and tonight we're finishing on what does God have to do with my relationships? And there's lots in the Bible that God has to say about this, and so hopefully I'm going to pull together a range of things to distill some of the wisdom that God has for us. And this is an important topic for us to look at because relationships are fundamental to who we are. And that is because we were created by a relational God. And what I mean by that is that our God has always existed in relationship. What we know of God, there's God the Father, and there's God the Son, and there's God the Holy Spirit. And they exist eternally, all in relationship with one another. God is never alone, so to speak. And God, he created us in his image. And part of that means that we too were created to have relationships with other people. And there are all kinds of relationships that we have in life: family, friends, romantic relationships, mentors, teachers, teammates, colleagues, and I could go on and on. And I want to say up front that the most important relationship that you can ever have and you ever need to pay attention to is your relationship with Jesus. And so if you don't know Jesus, I want you to hear tonight that the most important thing for you and the only thing that is going to matter for your eternity is where you stand with Jesus and whether he calls you friend or not. And if you do know Jesus here tonight, then still the same message to you is your most important relationship is your relationship with Jesus. And it can be fostered and it can be neglected just like any other relationship. But for the majority of tonight, I am going to be thinking about what Jesus has to do with our friendships. Because no matter what stage you're at or what stage of life you're in or how old you are, friendships are really, really important. Friends are so important that even Jesus, who is God, had friends here on earth. Jesus, he recruited 12 men called the 12 disciples, and he lived with them, and he taught them, and he trained them in God's way, but he also called them his friends. In John 15:15, Jesus says this: I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. So Jesus, he didn't just consider these men like his mentees, he saw them as friends. And as we read, we see that within these 12 people, Jesus had 3 named Peter, James, and John, who he was especially close to. Now, what does this show us? It shows us that God himself decided that it was a good idea for him to have friends. But what else does God teach us about friendship in the Bible? Well, we see that the concept of friend is intrinsically linked to love. In James 2, verse 23, we read, "And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend." However, when we go back into the Old Testament passages where Abraham is called friend, which we find in Isaiah 41 and 2 Chronicles 20, the word that is translated there to friend isn't the usual word that we would translate to friend, but rather it's a participle of the word love. So what that means is the literal translation of this is the one who loves God, which comes over to the New Testament Greek as the friend of God. Now, this isn't a mistranslation as we go to the Greek. This happens because this concept of friend carries such connotations of love. And we see this idea from Jesus in John 15. Let me read it again and listen to how closely friend and love are linked together. Jesus says, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. I have told you this that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. And so whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other." So the Bible shows us that to be a friend means to love, and to love self-sacrificially as Jesus loved us. And if you love Jesus, if you say, yes, Jesus is my friend, I love him, that's his command. Go and love other people. So I want to take a moment now for you to think, who are your friends? Who are your people? And I mean, there's lots of different levels of friends that we can have, right? Like there's those people that you'll have a chat to when you bump into them, or even sometimes just those people you give a wave to when you see them in public. Or there's those friends that are fun to hang out with socially, you really enjoy spending time together. But then there are those other friends, those ones who really know you, the ones who you are vulnerable with, and you share the deeper things of life with. Now, these different levels of friends, so to speak, they're not bad. We need people in all different kinds of categories, all different kinds of friends and spaces. And also, it means that having close friends is not inherently a mean thing. Jesus, he chose 12 people out of everyone in the nation. He chose 12. And then from within that, he chose a closer 3. But the Bible shows us that we do need to be wise about who these people are. Because these close friends, the ones that you let into the deeper parts of your life, the ones that you spend the most time with, they shape you. And Proverbs has a lot. There's more I could have shared from tonight, but Proverbs has heaps to say on this. And it prompts us to ask, Are my friends reliable? Proverbs 18:24 says, "The one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother." Friendships are an important part of our lives, and we need to have friends that are just reliable. Friends that we can depend on. Friends that will walk through the highs and lows of life with us. Friends who stick by us and who are there to support us. But Proverbs also warns us about how friends can get us caught up into sinful ways or into ways that are just not good for us or good for our life. Proverbs 22:24-25 says this, "Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared." And I think anger here could be replaced with a whole range of different things. Friends who are okay with getting drunk, friends who regularly love to gossip or tear people down, friends who use language in ways that dishonors God, friends that'll just tell you whatever you want to hear. The list goes on. And the point of this proverb is that your friends, they shape you. Your friends can get you caught up in not great stuff. And I want to point out that just because someone is a Christian doesn't mean that they're a good friend or that they're having a good influence on you. We are all broken people and we're all on a journey of maturity. But being a Christian doesn't mean that we're automatically there, that we automatically show up for our friends in good ways, that we automatically don't get people caught up in our mess as well. Whether we want it to happen or not, and I hear this sometimes, like, "Oh, I won't be influenced by them. Oh no, it's fine." The reality is, our friendships influence us because we are deeply relational creatures. Proverbs tells us the wisdom is be careful who these people are, because you can learn their ways and you can end up being ensnared too. But the good side of this reality of us being incredibly relational and influencing each other is highlighted in Proverbs 27 verse 17, which says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." And so the flip side of this message is that we can actually help each other look more like Christ. We can help each other live better lives. If you have friendships with people who love God and love you, then you will likely try and make each other better if you're serious about that walk with one another. That is the way friendships work. But for that to happen, that means being willing to go into uncomfortable places with each other. As iron sharpens iron, it's not always an easy or fun process. Do you have people in your life who you know would rebuke you out of love when you're not following God's way? Do you have people who love you honestly like that? Galatians 6 verse 1 says, "Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted." Helping each other with the messy parts of our life, the messy sin in our hearts, is part of what makes a good friend. It's part of love saying, "Hey, I see this, but there is something better for you. Let me help you. Let me walk with you through this." We all need friends like this because we all, no matter how long you've been following Jesus, no matter what in life, we all get tempted, we all struggle, and we all need people to encourage us and not just turn a blind eye to our problems or the things we find hard. Have you ever heard the saying, "Show me a person's friends and I'll tell you about a person's character"? Well, I think this is another way of distilling some of the wisdom that Proverbs gives us here. Your closest people will shape you and will influence what your future looks like. But at this point, I want to make something very clear, because this isn't saying that we should ignore or not associate with people who are flaky, or people who struggle with anger or drunkenness or anything else. It's good for us to have those relationships, to try and walk with them, to be a light of Jesus to them, so that we can be a friend that supports and that loves. And if we don't, then we're going to become a very insular kind of community, just looking to ourselves. And that isn't what Jesus asks for either. Yes, Jesus at times drew away with his closest friends, but he also spent a lot of time having dinner with sinners and tax collectors and people who society just deemed utterly not worthy of being anyone's friend. Jesus, he didn't come to hang out with the best behaved or the ones who were the best at hanging out with God or being close to God or following him. He came to seek and save the lost. That's what Jesus says. And if we love Jesus, then we need to have a heart for those people as well. We should be seeking out those people who others would deem as not worth much time. The point of these proverbs isn't to withdraw from those who are different or withdraw from those who struggle, but rather be wise about who you let shape your life. Your friendships really do impact your future. So really think carefully and intentionally about who you are willing to let do that. And seek out deep friendships with people who you respect and who will help you be the person that Jesus wants you to be. Those decisions really matter. So think about the balance of friendships that you have in your life. Who are the ones that are influencing you? Who are you walking beside? Have you become too insular, or have you just made deep friendships with people who aren't leading you in good ways? And what about you? Are you being a good friend? Are you influencing those around you for good, or are you drawing them away into sinful and unhelpful ways of being? The Bible shows us that we need to put effort into our friendships. Jesus' command to love each other doesn't mean just have fun all the time, though it is important to have fun with your friends. But love, at times, will be costly. Love cost Jesus his life. And whilst I think it is not very likely that we would be put in a position where we need to lay down our lives physically for our friends, he does show us that we need to be selfless, looking out for our friends' interests. Developing deep relationships rarely happens by accident. It takes time to build intentionality and trust, to be vulnerable, to allow someone to know you and to put the effort into really knowing someone else as well. However, I want to preface this with a warning, because there are always people in life, I see it all the time, a lot of people in churches as well, who are more inclined to give, and there are people in life who are more inclined to take. And so I don't want those who are naturally like givers of their time and energy and love to hear, all right, I need to keep giving of myself until I have nothing left. Boundaries are important. Rest is important. It's that old analogy that you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help someone else. Remember that. Because you will encounter people in your life who will take all that they can get. But it is not healthy, nor is it responsible for you to just let them do that. Yes, Jesus laid down his life, but also at times he said no. He withdrew and he prayed by himself, and he spent time with the people closest to him. It is vital that you work out what good boundaries look like in your friendships. But on the flip side, If you are someone who consistently takes, my encouragement to you is to look up and to see the person that you're taking from. Because yes, we will all have seasons of life where we need a little more love. Of course, a lot of the time our friendships won't always be 50-50. But if you are consistently the person going to someone else for help, if you are consistently, if your problems are always the topic of conversation, if it's always a debrief about how you are and what you're going through, then I want to encourage you to take a step back and look at the balance in your friendship. When was the last time that the conversation was mostly about them and you checked in to see how they're going? When was the last time you prayed for their needs? Friendships, they're not 50-50 all the time, but they should give a mutual support. There's a saying I heard that everyone wants a village, but no one wants to be a villager. And what that is saying is that sometimes you will need to inconvenience yourself for someone else. That is what friends do. They show up for one another even if they could be doing something better. I experienced that yesterday. I moved house and I had friends who definitely could have been doing something better with their time, but they love us. They showed up for us. But if you want that kind of village, if you want to be a part of that, then be someone who's willing to do that for other people. Deep community does not just happen by accident. It's easy to look at people and communities and see that, but we don't see the hard work, the ups and downs, the commitment that goes into forming those kinds of bonds. And another hard lesson to learn is that sometimes friendships are only for a season. Let me read you this story. This is from someone else. There I was, standing before not just a real-life person, but a long-time 80-year-old friend. She was smiling, reaching out for a hug, and telling me with the utmost sincerity, "It was nice knowing you." I returned her warm expression and embrace, but my speech faltered. It was nice knowing me? I was switching churches, not countries. Sure, our family planned to move out of the neighbourhood at some point, but not now. Wouldn't we see each other around? At the very least, we could keep up via text and exchange Christmas cards. We were still friends, weren't we? Yes, we were friends, but also human. Limited creatures with limited resources. And sometimes it takes veteran saints to bring social media savants gently back down to reality. In a fallen, finite, and seasonal world, friendships come and go. And this was a lesson that I really, really struggled with growing up. As someone who feels deeply and loves a lot, losing a friend was awful. It always felt to me like a personal failure. I didn't try hard enough. I should have gone to visit them or check in more. And maybe there are things you could have done, but the reality is we are finite humans with only so much time and energy. Social media has tricked us into thinking that we can stay connected with everyone all the time. But there will be times in life when deep friendships fade, and that is okay. Sometimes friendships will end even when no one moves away. Things shift, people change, and maybe God has different plans for you both and how He wants you to invest your time and energy. I know that that is a scary thought. It was for me. But take comfort knowing that there are plenty of other beautiful friendships ahead of you if you want them. And that brings me to my final point. Do you have room in your life for new friends? If none of us do, then how could anyone else come to know Jesus? How can that new person at church get connected? Sometimes, and I'm speaking to myself here, we might not feel like we don't need any more friends. But that doesn't mean that other people don't. As scary as it is, friendships come and go, And so it's wise to spend some time with the Lord working out which friendships he wants you to continue to water. Maybe some older friendships, they just haven't flowered for a really long time. Maybe our love and our time would be better spent investing in those whom God has placed around us. Maybe even people who are here tonight just sitting a couple of seats away from you. My encouragement would be to spend time laying your life out before the Lord and asking him, Lord, where should I labor? Friendships are an important part of who we are. They shape us. And my encouragement is to spend some time really intentionally thinking about who our people are. The people that you want to invest deeply into, the people you are letting shape you, the people who God might ask you to let go of for now, and the people who God has brought into your life that he wants you to build a friendship with. The Bible sees friend as having such connotations of love, and we just simply cannot create deep friendships with everyone. We are limited beings, and so our decisions with our friends are really important. Who does God want you journeying with in this season of your life? And how can you be a good friend to them and point them to Jesus? And if you are here tonight and you don't know Jesus, it is my prayer that you will find a good friend who will introduce him to you. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you that you have created us to be deeply relational beings. Thank you that you have made a way for us to have a relationship with you. And thank you for the relationships you place in our lives. Help us, Father, to be wise about friendships, intentional about who we invest in, and looking outward to see who you've put in our lives that you want us to build friendships with. Please be with us, Father, and help us to point each other towards you for the rest of our days. Amen.